Hello and welcome to a special series of new videos called Car Dealer Problem Solvers. We've teamed up with Sentience Automotive Solutions to provide you with some help and advice on the most pressing topics. I'm James Baggett, I'm the founder of Car Dealer Magazine, and joining me is Ali May-Khalil. Sorry Ali, I will get your name right at one stage, the MD of Sentience. Good morning Ali, how are you?
Morning James, yeah, very well, thank you very much, very well.
Nice to see you. Thanks ever so much for coming to us with this idea for some great topics to help dealers out with some pressing stuff. So first up today, we're going to be talking about tackling used car stock and getting hold of it. As we know, used car market's pretty crazy out there, Ali, at the moment. Market is booming. The result of that is getting hold of stock is really quite tough. What would your advice be to dealers then to try and make sure that they can stock their forecourts once again and make sure they've got the cars they need to sell?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is booming. Well, for the most part, I'm sure there's areas that aren't, but and it's going very well. And obviously, that brings its own problems, as you mentioned, around stock and prices, particularly. Hearing all sorts of terminology. In the auctions of cars making silly money. And so on and so forth. And of course, that brings with the challenges because, dealers we work with naturally are concerned as such is that if you buy the car for the strong money, you've got to turn it quickly, haven't you? 20, 25 days maximum. Otherwise, you could be sat on a car. Well, who knows what's going to happen to the market next month, month after. You could be sat on something owing you a lot of money. So we've got to be a bit creative with the way in which we buy stock. Now, the easiest thing in the universe is to go online to an auction, bid, buy the car. Of course, there's fees on that, delivery, transportation. There's obviously a lag between when you buy the car, of course, when you click the button, and when it actually arrives, so you can photograph it and get it advertised. So if you're looking at hopefully a 9-10 times stock turn, then that car realistically is going to take 20%, 15% of that time of a 30-day turn getting there, isn't it? If it takes a week. So how can we look at ways of getting the stock quicker? And obviously, hopefully not spending the earth on it. So got a few ideas really and things that we've been working well with. And of course, look, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, but hopefully some value here. And the first thing I want to talk about is the website, the dealer website. Now, dealers' websites, of course, are set up for selling cars, aren't they? You go on the website, gallery of cars, videos of cars, so on and so forth. But really what I'd like to encourage people to think about is, can you buy and sell cars on your website? So when you land on the homepage, is there a functionality to say, buy a car, sell a car? Because at the moment, most, not all, because there's some that do it, are just selling cars. But really, you can't sell it until you bought it. So what's the weighting on your witebsite about advertising the fact that you buy them?
Ali, a quick point on that front. So I'm chatting to my dad at the weekend. 75-year-old man. He's got a BMW 3 Series that he doesn't use. He's been looking to sell. I said, how are you trying to get rid of it, Dad, at the moment? He says, oh, it's on Gumtree. I said, well, why hasn't it sold? He said, well, I don't really know about the pricing. I said, surely there must be another way of getting rid of that car. But, I'm thinking, I didn't have any advice for him. I mean, the other option was we buy any car.
Yeah.
If he could take that to a dealer, or I'm sure there must be dealers out there desperate for that sort of stock. It's very good.
Yeah, there would be.
How can dealers tackle that? I mean, because it's quite hard to just have that on a website, because that would mean my dad would have to go out there and start searching for
Yes.
dealers' websites, wouldn't it?
Exactly. So as a basic point, you're quite right. Buy a car, sell a car. So naturally, you would have to go onto that dealer website, as you say, to be able to see the fact they buy them. So it's a little bit about education. So the first point is educate people that land on the website that you do buy, as well as sell. But yeah, for the sort of passive seller, if you like, who probably, like your dad, might likely only really sort of conjure up, we buy any car, to use your example, is how can we advertise the fact we buy cars? So a couple of other things as well. First, what about a landing page? So taking a separate singular page that a dealer can buy, set up, call it something different, maybe. Like, I don't know, if you live in Gloucestershire, you know, Gloucestershire car buyer. We buy your car, Gloucestershire. And a landing page that then the dealer commits a little bit of spend to around pay-per-click. So to drive some traffic for people who are just Googling, I want to sell my car. You know, I live in, who can I sell my car to in Gloucestershire or Kent or wherever? And that really then captures the person that only wants to sell as opposed to buy a car. So could dealers look at ways, you know, initiatives, if you like, to create themselves a landing page, put a little bit of spend behind it, you know, whatever you're spending on advertising with, I don't know, all the various classifieds out there, is we found that, you know, with £300 or £400 a month spend on PPC, SEO, whatever, is that you can drive good traffic to your website, which is literally just a page to say, right, input your reg number, mileage, we will buy that car if it meets the following criteria, I don't know, you know, German car under 40,000 miles, 60,000, whatever. Inquire now, we'll give you a price. Then it's about speed of response. The dealer's then alerted through an email. Dealer can ring the customer and say, yeah, we'll buy that. That's how much we'll give for it. So that's something that I think dealers who just sort of put their website up and hope for the best won't be able to attract that sort of stock. They've got to create a sideline, if you like, a side gig. And I recommend creating a landing page, calling it something else, buying a URL, you know, specific to your area. If you want to buy nice local, you know, the way to get the local cars, the privately owned cars, is to sort of fish in your own pond. So, you know, I live in Norwich. So, you know, I don't know if there is one out there, but, you know, Norwich cars under 40,000 miles, we will buy them, you know, whatever. And then spend the money on those keywords. And you'll find that a client of ours, for example, has got, obviously I couldn't give you the web name, be a bit unfair, but they've done that. And they're buying about 4 or 5 cars a week through it. It's costing about £200 or £300 a week in spend. But of course, great.
And Ali, they're clearly saving money elsewhere where they would be buying stock on commission.
Loads. I mean, the average indemnity cost on a car from an auction is £400 or £500 to buy one car. So if you're buying 4 cars, then a couple of grand is what you're spending on fees. And if you were to spend that on PPC or SEO, whatever, oh my goodness, yeah, that's a lot of £8 grand a month for a typical independent dealer with maybe 50, 60, 70, 80 used cars. Is that you can spend a fraction of that, half of that, and drive a terrific amount of traffic, but to a landing page. If you're gonna spend that sort of money and drive it to your own website, then what you're trying to do is sell cars, aren't you? Not buy them, which is why I suggest you set up a separate, almost like a little mini business as an offshoot of your own, like a hub and spoke sort of thing.
What about for those dealers? I mean, clearly dealers are very busy at the moment, and they're pedaling hard to keep the wheels turning. What about those dealers who might not want to do that? Have you got advice for, say, if they are buying from auction? I mean, it's a very different way, isn't it, out there at the moment, buying from auction? Physically, they're not open again. A lot of it's been done online. I think some dealers are struggling with that. I've heard some stories that some of them are buying stuff that, when it turns up, is not quite the quality that they would have hoped for. Have you got any advice on how they should be tackling this kind of new auction world? Well,
unfortunately, there's no sort of silver bullet to that. I'd love to be able to say, yes, here's the goose that lays the golden egg, but that's not going to happen. We are where we are with that. It's about finding time to be creative. So, for example, retention. I would encourage dealers to look back across cars they've sold to customers 2 years ago, 18 months ago, 2-3 years ago. They'll have a database of that somewhere. If it's not digital, it'll be paper. It'll be somewhere in a filing cabinet. You're better off spending 2 or 3 hours, in my view, and experience with our clients, going through that to just, do you know what, do the legwork. Instead of sitting online and having the difficulty of, all the things you've mentioned, it's actually ringing the customers to say, we want your car. We would like to buy it back from you. Whether or not you're interested in buying another car from us, we're going to pay you X. Now, of course, you can be braver on those cars, can't you? In terms of what you offer the customer. Because you know that you're going to be able to see the car before you buy it, because they'll run it down to you. which sort of negates what you said there around sort of buying the unknown. They'd have to, and of course, if you're ringing customers within a half-hour drive of your business that have dealt with you before, you've got the goodwill. So I would encourage the dealers, as I say, I was with one of mine on Thursday doing the exact same thing. 2 or 3 hours, Andy there was on the phone, ringing up, bought 2 cars. Probably had to make, I don't know, 25 phone calls, but bought a couple of cars in that 2 hour, 3 hour period. The customers brought it straight down, he had a look around it, got his mechanic to check it out, paid terrific money for the car. But customers happy because it's quite a bit more than we buy any car would have offered. But of course, the dealer hasn't got to spend anything on transportation costs, hasn't got to spend anything on auction fees, hasn't got to spend anything on advertising. So even if the book price was, I don't know, 7,000 and they gave 7,500, they're still better off. And crucially, going back to my initial point, it's ready to retail straight away. Transfer the money to the customer's bank, give it a valet, photograph the car, and that car's ready to go day 1 when it's booked into stock, not day 8. When you get the car there at day 7, day 8, realise it needs paintwork, realise it might need some things, you get it off to the body shop, another couple of 3 days have gone. You could be into 14 days from when you've written the check to when you can actually try and sell the car.
Ali, what sort of businesses do you predominantly work with? Just so viewers know the sort of dealers that you do business with, and where this has been successful. I mean, I'm not asking for you to name names because that is unfair, but really just in terms of size.
Well, of course they vary, but I would say around 65% of our book, if you like, dealer client base is dealers somewhere between 30, 35 to 70 used cars. That is independent dealer. That's predominantly there, like I say, 60% of that. Then there's probably another 20% or so that are a blend of 100 car plus, a couple of supermarkets in there. So maybe a dozen or so of the larger dealers, but they're probably looking to achieve something slightly different. And then, of course, we've got the main dealer in there as well. So, but again, they'll pretty much be, well, they will be independent main dealer group. So it might be a standalone site or maybe 3 or 4 or family owned.
And out of those, Ali, who is absolutely nailing getting hold of used car stock at the moment, and how are they doing it? Is it using this new system of buying cars privately from customers that is outside of the normal kind of remarketing network?
Right. Well, if you've got, say, a typical dealer, one I worked with last Thursday, for example, about 50 used cars. Okay, nice site, 50, 55 used cars. So if they can buy, if they're selling 40 a month, then they need to replenish 10 a week, don't they? Roughly. I mean, using crude numbers. So if they can buy 5, and with a 50% part exchange rate on the cars they're selling anyway, you know, so if you're selling a specific type of car that attracts the type of part exchange you can go with again. So, you know, 40 to 50% of part exchanging. So that means you need to make up the other 50% with buying it. So you need to really think about, instead of worrying about the bigger picture, is how do I buy 5 cars a week? That's their problem to be solved. So it's about using some of the things I've mentioned already around landing page, around retention customers, remarketing your existing customers. If you've got workshop facilities, again, that's a big win for our clients that have ramps, because of course they can talk to customers that are in their workshop. They've looked at the car, would you like us to buy it? You might buy 1 or 2 a week like that. The biggest bang for the buck though, I mean, all of those things help. You've got to find the time for it, of course, but probably the biggest bang for the buck is social media. So amongst all the things I've mentioned, the one that stands out as the best way of attracting the type of stock that you might like is to reach out to passive customers, people who aren't thinking of selling. So we ran a campaign for a dealer client, a Facebook ad campaign. So we managed that for them, and they targeted, so of course the back end of Facebook, you can target postcode, models of interest. You can really get into a bit of minutiae, can't you there? So we went out with a particular sort of German under 60,000 mile, German or Swedish actually, because they do Volvo. German or Swedish, under 60,000 mile, between these plate, I think it was 12 plate to 16 plate, I think. Put some money behind it as a boost, of course, and said, we must buy 7 cars by so-and-so time, we are going to pay market-leading prices for these vehicles, but once we've bought 7, the deals are off. So like a call to action, a real energy around this social media campaign. Bought 11 cars through social media. So, private customers going, oh, top price is paid. Now, I know they actually said, we will give you more than everybody else. So they're pretty brave with it.
Mm.
So they'll give you more than we buy any car. They'll give you more than any other written quote. It's quite aggressive. But for £300 worth of Facebook spend, which is what it was, 320 quid, something like that, they bought 11 cars by running a social media campaign on buying stock. Then they started running competitions. So they're really getting into that. Now, if they're doing that once a month, maybe, then, a monthly thing like that, they're buying 25% of the stock they need through that. This
sounds like it's totally turning the car dealership on its head in some ways, because
it is. From buying stock, it is, yeah.
So many dealers out there are probably so focused on selling cars.
Yeah.
The restocking is not something they spend as much time thinking about.
No, it's not. Well, not in my experience, anyway.
But what you're saying is that is the absolute core part of their business, really.
Yeah. Because the good operators, they're not just our clients. There's loads of great operators out there that aren't our clients. And if you talk to all of them in the independent sector particularly, no matter whether they've got 50 cars, 100, 200, 600, they'll all tell you that, the people buying the stock, having somebody or a process or a strategy to buy it is more important than selling it. Because if you buy the car and it's priced right, it will sell. Right? It will sell. Do you need it's been this way for a while, but do you need good salespeople? No. Do you need, to be a great closer? Nah, nonsense. Probably used to be. What you really need is a strategy to buy it. I would spend more time looking at things like retention, landing page, social media. Fill your forecourt full of good stuff, because if you do a good pictures, good video, get it advertised through your ordinary channels, you'll sell it. So when people engage our business, for example, for a variety of things, so we'll typically work with a dealer that wants to make more money, Tadan, that's kind of it. One that perhaps wants to grow is another one. Maybe they've got 40, 50 cars, but like 100. How do we do that? And that all boils straight back down to, what can you get? How do we really work on a process and a strategy to increase your stock without blowing your brains out on price or fees? So we spend a terrific amount of time helping that dealer buy themselves some time. And if you can outsource it, of course, if you wanted to. Some dealers do that, which I think is a good idea in some cases, so they can focus on the core day to day. But definitely, the problem that needs to be solved is how much of your working week, say for example, James, in your business, you'll have meetings, you'll have tasks that you'll allot time to in your diary. Half day, right, the team are doing this. Taking that kind of mindset for the dealer is, how much of the week have they said, right, Tuesday afternoon from 1 till 5, I'm unavailable because I'm doing this stuff to buy the stock. If they're trying to do it in and around other tasks, the trouble is, as we know, the day just evaporates. Dealing with customers, warranty claims, transporters, phone ringing, doctor's appointment, the list goes on. If you're trying to run your business the core part of your business, stock procurement, especially how difficult it is at the moment, in and around other tasks, I think you're always chasing your tail. You need to put it at the front, have a plan, and execute that. Make the time.
Ali, thank you ever so much for those top tips on that. I think we've given our viewers some really good things to go at. We're obviously going to do a series of these. So have you got any ideas of what we're going to be chatting about next time, or is that going to be one for our viewers to come to us with?
Well, do you know what? I'm fairly open to that. I want to be clear and say that we don't have the answers for everything. We don't pretend to have, but we've got good experience, good team, and we work across lots and lots of different types of businesses, automotive obviously. So I think we've got something to offer. So if there's, like we spoke about stock today, if there's a particular thing that dealers or a dealer would like us to cover, happy to consider that, and we'll build something around that, and we'll have another little chat, and I'll see if I can share some stuff that might help them. I think we probably, in the event that doesn't happen, and we choose something, I'd like to maybe think about digital journey. How can dealers, what should dealers be doing, I should say, with the digital leads? How are we treating those leads, and how do we shape our offering to that? Because of course, with all the news last week of, well, the news is that I think for the foreseeable future, next few months certainly, I think we're going to see a continuation of digital communications between customers and dealers, less sort of forecourt walk-ins. So what's the plan? To really make sure that we convert leads to appointments.
Yeah.
That's the metric now, in my view, is leads to appointments. Never mind conversion rates for selling. How do we take all of these digital leads? What can we do to turn them into physical visits? We might have some stuff on that if that helps.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that. Ali, thanks ever so much for your
pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Good time today. Great stuff. So if you have got any questions or any topics that you would like us to cover, please email me. I'm on james@blackballmedia.co.uk, and I'll share them with Ali, and we'll see what we could do for the next edition of Problem Solvers. If you'd like more videos like this, log on to cardealermagazine.co.uk, click on the live tab at the top of the page. Thanks ever so much for joining us. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.